He's cross-filed, but he is the registered Republican candidate, and I just want to make that clear. Nick?
Thank you. Can everybody hear me? Okay.
You do not have 17 minutes.
I will not use 17 minutes.
He's done that to me before.
Good evening. My name is Victor Scamilio, and I would like to serve Northampton County as your next judge of the Court of Common Pleas. I'm often asked, why do you want to run for judge? And for me, the answer is simple. I want to protect the values that we all share. I want to protect the communities that we all enjoy. And I want to work hard to serve the people of Northampton County. The next question is, well, why should you be a judge? And let me tell you, I've been working hard for 17 years. First 2 years of my practice, I was a law clerk to our judges. I worked with Judge Simpson on a day-to-day basis, both in the court and out of court, with both trial decisions and written opinions that our judges decide. The last 15 years, I've had extensive trial and litigation experience in all subject matters: civil, criminal, orphans court, family court, and juvenile court. I've been certified by the Pennsylvania Supreme Court to try death penalty cases, and our judges have had put trust in me to try those cases. Not only death penalty, but homicide and serious felony cases. I had significant appellate experience in the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, the Pennsylvania Superior Court, and also extensive federal experience in both the Eastern District and the Middle District of Pennsylvania. I've been solicitor for our county, and I've also volunteered with pro bono work to make sure that our courts are accessed by all. I've been on the list of appointed attorneys that our judges have relied upon me for over 15 years to make sure that those court systems were open for all, those with finances and those without. I've stood beside victims of crime. I've stood beside those who have been abused. And I've also represented other aspects of our county: businesses, both big and small, employers, employees, hardworking families, juveniles, and individuals, as both plaintiffs and defendants. In 2012, I was elected president of the Northampton County Bar Association, and I served 12 years as an elected officer and director of that association. I'm proud to say that on my committee to support my election, I have 9 past presidents of the Bar Association who are supporting my election. I'm a proud member of St. James Church in Palmer Township. I'm a member of Knights of Columbus in Utica. I'm also active in the community. I'm a volunteer for local youth sports and for the Boy Scouts of America. And I'm also a volunteer not only in my town of Palmer Township, but also the city of Easton. I own a home in Palmer where I live with my wife of 15 years, and we're proud to be raising our son, who is 13 years old. All of this gives me the breadth of experience to help our court. I'm keenly aware that a judge is not elected to legislate from the bench, but is rather there to apply the law to the facts. The Constitution is the bedrock of our country. It's not clay in the hands of a judge to mold as the winds of time change. A hard-working court is critical to the success of our county, to the safety of our citizens, and to the protection of our community. And I'm ready, willing, and able to take on that role. With your support, we can continue success on our court. With your support, we can ensure safe communities and the protection of our citizens. With your support, we can ensure the future success of this county. And with your support, I can win this election in November and win the primary in May. And I appreciate your support. I appreciate you coming out here this evening to support these candidates, and I thank all those who made this event possible. Thank you very much.
I was looking for that song.
I'm keeping it.
You don't need it? You might need it. I've been in meetings with you. You might need it.
We've talked about it.
Yeah, I'm allowed. Okay. Opening? Yeah.
All right.
The opening statement.
Just real quick, my name's Howard Kunzler. I'm a Northampton County Republican Committee person. I'm also treasurer of the party. And I'd also like to thank Lee Snover for all her time and effort in putting together this forum tonight, as well as Ben and Marcy Hedrick, Mary Barquette, Karen Fry, and Dottie Nicholas, who are all here tonight with the party. So with that said, what we want to do is we'll start the forum, and we'll start with opening candidates. Oh, go ahead, Ben. Ben's our timekeeper, so go ahead, Ben.
I'll be flashing this, and you have 15 seconds left, and your time's up. Get down here, let you know.
I'll be a little forgiving.
Considering the amount of candidates here.
Yeah, we'll be a little more forgiving.
Candidates, double the time.
Lee will be the judge and jury. Sorry, Victor. So what we're going to do is start with an opening statement from the candidates. You each get 2 minutes, and we will start in the order of the ballots. And with the candidates present tonight, that would be Mr. Martin Zaworski.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the Northampton County Republican Committee for hosting this forum and giving us a chance to voice our views to the residents. I've had the pleasure of serving the Board of Commissioners for the last 3 years and being president for over a year now. This experience has been challenging and very rewarding. I've enjoyed the time spent with Bethlehem Township staff as well as our residents guiding the Township of Bethlehem into new direction. Bethlehem Township has many challenges, both new as well as old, taking care of past mistakes made by past board members. New challenges include, how do we manage growth, especially in light of our limited road system? How do we contain costs that are tied with contracts as well as fixed costs? How do we best provide for services both essential as well as non-essential costs? How do we stay on top of and obtain grants to help support our income? Grants are a huge way of offsetting costs for vital services. For years, the township's mindset was to keep doing what it has always been doing, and this tactic won't work in the future. A new mindset has to emerge, and there is resistance, but with good leadership, with a clear vision, changes can be made. We have to do more with less. We have to be creative in our approach. We must take the approach in making decisions that are good and sound, not only for the residents and against the township, or not just for the township and against the residents, but decisions that are good for both the township residents and the township itself. It has to be a win-win for everyone, otherwise no one wins. My background and skill set has been extremely important in guiding Bethlehem Township in that new direction. There have been many problems that I have solved that no one else had answers for, both at a staff level, at a board level, as well as dealing with residents. I have worked to bring my entrepreneurial skills to Bethlehem Township, and this has helped tremendously in solving problems and creating opportunities for all of us. I see things and issues a little bit differently than most, and that has always been a positive trait for me. Because of my experience, my passion, my leadership skills, as well as the energy I bring to this job, I am the best person for Commissioner, and I appreciate your vote on Tuesday, May 19th. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zaworski. Mr. Nolan.
Good evening. Again, I want to thank the Republican Party for this forum. I always appreciate a chance to speak. As they say, experience counts, okay? Unfortunately or fortunately, I have a very long history with Bethlehem Township, almost 35 years, both as a volunteer and as an elected official. Okay, I started because when I built my house a couple blocks from here, there were no sidewalks, there were no streets, there were no curves, there was nothing. All right, yet I still had an occupancy. So after a year, I was on the Planning Commission, and my task several years later as a chair was to foster a complete overhaul of the comprehensive plan, land and subdivision ordinance, zoning ordinance, and a new stormwater ordinance. And I pushed that through, and I think all the new developments in the township since then have benefited from that effort. And we constantly look at our comp plan and update. But yeah, we have planning issues. I think we're on the target. We are fiscally responsible. In 20 years that I've been on and involved, we've only had one tax increase, and that was in 08 when the economy tanked. Since then, we have had no tax increase. Why? Because we do run a very tight conservative budget, but we do not suffer in offering the finest services to the residents, both police, fire protection, recreational facilities, etc. So we do want to make sure. The development that we have coming, I think we have a strong planning commission that we rely upon, and a good township engineer, and the board, and with the knowledge I possess as a 26-year planning commissioner, I think we do justice to anybody coming in. But it's not only coming to a meeting twice a month for a commissioner, you have outside involvements. I service the township both as a representative for the Bethlehem Area Public Library, which I presently serve as their president. I'm also served the Council of Governments for Northampton County as their president for many years. I'm also on the Gaming Authority, which brought in about $1.5 million in grant money in the last 6 years due to my strong efforts on that board. And I'm also a member of the Lehigh Valley Planning Commission, which liaisons all the information from that group into the township so that we're at the leading edge of what's happening not only in the township but in the county and also in the entire valley. So I do appreciate, like we say, if it's not broken, don't try to fix it. I think I have the experience, and I do wish support of the people who have kept me in office for all these years. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nolan. Mr. Murphy.
I want to thank everybody for coming tonight and having me here. Before I get started, I just want to relay a message from Paul Weiss, who's a candidate. Paul got back from the doctor today, and he is in bed. He can hardly even talk. So he apologizes for not being here. My motivation for running again for commission is to continue to serve the public. Not just the active ones like yourselves who come to meetings like this, but also the silent majority who need someone to make the right, tough decisions that will affect their quality of life. It's about seeing into the future and planning for it rather than burying our heads in the ground and avoiding the inevitable. It's about vision on how to proceed. When I left office 4 years ago, the township was on solid ground. We established a line of credit to handle future large purchases such as fire trucks, sewer improvements, major repairs, any shortages that might come from the budget. To the current board's credit, they have maintained no increase in real estate taxes, but they have used up almost the whole line, most of the line, for upcoming purchases in the year 2015. Income to the township over the years is relatively leveled off. We do not have the inflow of new housing starts to generate one-time income and adds to the real estate tax base. A virtual gold mine to income in an upscale shopping center on Freemansburg was replaced by St. Luke's Hospital. While providing residents with a closer modern medical facility, it doesn't generate the income that the mall would have. Contracts with police and staff call for cost increases each year. Fuel, utility costs keep rising, repairs are needed to the community center, roads keep getting worn out, but the income remains steady. With no development, there is no opportunities to increase revenue. That is why we need a vision on how to move forward. No one wants to be the first one to raise property taxes, but something must be done to offset the increases in expenses. Instead of raising taxes, I would work with the township solicitor to see about raising the % on business privilege tax that we get from the businesses that operate in the township. If this doesn't provide enough funds, I would explore the possibility of increasing the earned income tax slightly. This would generate revenue from working people, but not affect the retirees or non-workers. Finally, I would encourage the township manager and staff to try to attract new business into the township, which will provide the additional income. These are just a few of the ideas that will keep us in the lifestyle that our residents have come to rely on without getting caught, without cutting back on services. It takes guts to make tough decisions. It took guts to stand up to the president in the township. It took guts to remove the president of the Board of Commissioners when his personal agenda got in the way of the good of the township. It takes experience and good common sense to make decisions. I have both. I have served the public for over 20 years, from coaching football, baseball, basketball for the youth of our township, to serving years on zoning hearing board, to 8 years of commissioner of Bethlehem Township. I have used my abilities to make the right tough decisions because it's always the best for the township and the youth. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. And last but not least, Mr. Bernard.
As Lee said, I'll probably use the mic. You know, I do want to say this. I want to thank each and every one of you guys for coming out. You know, I want to thank the Northampton Republican Committee for putting together a forum like this. You know, I know if when I see these faces here, that means you guys want answers. So that means you care about the community, our economy, not only this county. So I see some familiar faces. I see Bob Kilbanks here. I see Ben Olenoff here. So I better be careful what I say tonight. But my main focus for running again is simply just the community. The reason why I'm seeking re-election is because I believe that there's opportunities that this community, that our township has to move it forward. I think there's a lot of strengths within our staff. Of course, we lost Mr. Kutzler, who's sitting here tonight. However, we have a new township manager, a new planning director. So there's a lot of things happening within the township, and I believe that if the board could stay intact to help facilitate our new manager and planning director, I think we have an opportunity to continue to move the township forward. Not only being financially responsible with some of the upcoming challenges and threats to our township. So the reason why I'm here tonight again is mainly my focus at the community. So I thank you guys all for coming out, and I hope the questions are somewhat mild tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bernard. Okay, the first question tonight will be to all of the candidates, and we will start the response in the order of the ballot for this particular question. And this is not a new question, and all of you, as I recall, have had some sort of input on this in the past. There's been much discussion amongst the current and past sitting boards of commissioners regarding introducing a single hauler waste and recycling program township-wide. Currently, Bethlehem Township allows individuals to choose their own hauler. Do you support a single hauler program? If so, why? Or do you support the current system of residents being responsible for their own trash and recycling disposal? We'll start with Mr. Zaworski.
What I support is a situation that, like I said earlier, is a win-win for both the residents and the township. If we go with a single hauler and it's a benefit to both, then it's something that we should do. If it is something that benefits one at the expense of the other, then it isn't something that we should do. I see that there has been resistance from some members of the township. And my position is not one to say, this is how I want to see things done, especially in regards to this. But what's the best decision for everyone? There are many, many benefits to going with the single hauler. There are just a couple benefits for residents to be able to choose their own. Recently, I chose to use a different hauler. I've lived in my house since 1988, and when that development was built, the developer chose a single hauler to protect his roads. Since then, there have been multiple haulers in that development, and with that, I've even changed haulers.
Thank you. Mr. Nolan.
Yeah, this is not a new issue. This came up several years ago, and as a result of many discussions, both with the haulers and some of the residents at public meetings, you know, we tweaked the ordinance, recycling ordinance, which provided for some of the issues that were prevalent at the time. Right now, it's a mixed bag. Most people who contact me are against a single hauler. All right, they like their service. I have no problems understanding. I've had my service for many years, and I'm very happy with it. The only issue would be cost. If we can save them dollars, yes. But we need, before I take any action, we need to have public meetings with the residents offering their opinions. Okay? I follow Palmer Township, which actually has 3 contracts for the hauler, the recycling, and the garbage distribution. For them it works. But to us, I think there's going to be a strong resistance in the township, and until I know what the sentiment of the township residents are, I'm going to be open and not committed to going and making any changes at this time.
Thank you. Mr. Murphy?
I'm against the single hauler. First off, I believe it's every resident's right to choose who he wants to pick up their garbage, to do a lot of different things. But I think it may say, if they think that it may save some money, the real reason is it's got to be administered. And that means the township has to administer, which means more work for the staff. I've always been of the opinion, you don't give government more things to do, it's the only way it's going to get screwed up. We have a great staff, but I think they already have enough work on their plate. They don't need to do this. And when I was on the board, it was overwhelmingly no to single hauler, and I still support that.
Thank you. Mr. Bernard?
Are you looking for a position in
Yeah,
particular?
we want an answer, Phil, that's why we asked you.
I see you guys came for answers. You know, I just want to say one thing that, you know, back in December 2014, I know the staff, as well as the board, we had a strategic planning meeting. Staff met separately, the board met separately, and we looked at some of the opportunities that we really have in the township. Now, I'm going to try to do this within the time frame. And one of the things we looked at was some of the opportunities. And one of these opportunities was the single hauler and a recycling center, enlarging that. Now, obviously, my thought and my position on this is, again, to be proactive through planning. We want to continue to be responsible and understand what our community is looking for, what their concerns are. So again, that will be my position. As I mentioned tonight, my focus is still the community, and I'm going to stand in that belief. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bernard. Okay, we'll start the next question, and we're going to do reverse order. So as we ask questions, we're just going to go back and forth, and everybody will get a chance to answer the same question. In the area of finances, many municipalities, including Northampton County, have a fiscal stability fund, or sometimes called a rainy day fund. How much money do you believe Bethlehem Township should have in reserve in case of an unforeseen need? Mr. Bernard.
I have no idea. I do know one thing, that in response to your question, you know, one of the biggest issues facing, you know, most municipalities is our economy. And when you're looking at, you know, the biggest threat that we have is, you know, is how to balance the budget each year. And so when you look at your surplus of funds that are available, what you should set aside for the future, I have no idea what that amount should be or what it could be. So again, I would leave that to those that are, you know, on the staff. As far as our financial director, I think he would probably, you know, give us better insight as to an exact dollar amount if that's what you're looking for. But, you know, right now, again, I wouldn't have an idea on how much we should leave set aside.
Thank you. Mr. Murphy.
That question goes about looking into the future. As I mentioned before, I believe there should be some reserve fund. When I was on the board, there was talk at the time City of Bethlehem was going to expand the sewer plant. I don't think it's happened yet. I think it's been put on hold. But the numbers at the time to expand would mean that we have to come up with some money for township. We don't have that kind of money laying around, considering that we haven't had any increases, costs have been going up. My guess, I would agree with Phil, I don't know the exact amount, but I would say from an operating point of view, we should always have in the budget at least 3 months of expenditures socked away that we have. This way we don't run out of money. I'd like to see this reserve built up over time. And how it gets built up, again, would have to come from revenue.
Thank you. Mr. Nolan.
Okay. Well, again, As we go through our budget review every year, okay, we do have a very conservative budget. Normally our revenues usually exceed our expenditures as the year goes on. So we actually wind up with, if you want to call it a rainy day fund, funds that would be available should the need arise, okay? But there is no such allocation because so far we've run a very good township with respect to making sure that we get ahead of any problems that are costly and that we have the best equipment and the personnel to handle these problems. So I think the way it is every year, we are financially stable and there's no need to put money aside when we already have it available within the budget. And this is true year in and year out, as you well know. You know, this has been the case in Bethlehem Township, so hopefully it'll continue that way. And I expect that we are ahead of any quote-unquote catastrophe that may affect us.
Thank you. Mr. Zworsky.
It would be great if we would have anywhere between 2 and 4 million in a reserve fund. But considering the economy that we've had the past 10 years, I don't think that's a reality. We are fiscally responsible as a township. We do watch our costs, but the economy has changed over the last couple of years. Costs have gone up. Revenue has not kept up with those costs. So we manage through grants and in not doing things that maybe we would have in the past. Yeah, I'd like to have a nice rainy day fund, but the reality of it is we're kind of hard pressed with the way things are.
Thank you, Mr. Zworsky. It's almost unfair to have you start the next one. On to a current topic in Bethlehem Township. It has been reported that the proposed East Penn natural gas pipeline will traverse the township. It has been further reported that the township has hired a consultant to review the pipeline and its impacts on the township. Depending upon the results of the consultant's reviews and findings, and should there be an impact on the township from either or both in an economic or environmental perspective, do you believe the township should pass an ordinance or resolution opposing the pipeline? Mr. Zworsky.
Right now, with everything I know, I believe it's best for the township to take a neutral position and not go in favor of it or not go against it. The gas line is very important for the economic viability of the whole northeast of the United States. Pennsylvania is the Saudi Arabia of the natural gas world. 80% of the gas wells are capped. Only 20% of them are being used to produce natural gas. Infrastructure has to be made to get the gas to the point of use. I applaud anybody's use of natural gas. Every time I drive down the road, I see a certain company's garbage trucks, and it says Think Green on it, and they're powered by natural gas. That makes great headway into getting us off of oil from the Middle East. And anything we could do to that end strengthens Pennsylvania and will strengthen our community.
Thank you. Mr. Nolan.
Good question. My file on the East Penn natural gas line is getting thicker as we go. I've attended all the meetings. I've attended all the situations. I'm not even sure what the latest alignment is. It keeps changing. It's a moving target. But the minute it came out, I sat with our manager and the representatives from the gas line, the 2 managers, and we got an update as to the situation. First thing I discovered is we as a township have very little to say about it, period. Okay, it's a federal issue. If they get it approved, it's coming through. So all we can do is protect our interests. That's one of the reasons we have a consultant, to see if there are areas, once that final alignment is there, whether we are going to have problems. If you recall, the last 3 digits on the East Penn is LLC, limited liability, which means they get all the rewards and we get all the problems in the future if there is a problem. So there's a lot more to it. We also own 30 acres on Hope Road, which the pipeline is destined to go through. So now we are the landowner affected by it. So I think right now, whether we have a resolution or not, I'm opposed to it, because we as a township get nothing out of it other than future problems. Whether a resolution will make any difference or not, I'm not sure, but if I was going to say, I would support one at this time.
Thank you. Mr. Murphy?
Well, this all comes down to the hierarchy that we have to live in. Federal government, state, county, township. In the past, some things like the PennDOT thing, the park ride at PennDOT, we were told by the state, tough luck. Everybody else in the world would have to improve William Penn Highway. The state doesn't have to. They do their own rules. I believe this is in court, and what's going to happen is the courts are going to decide how this goes. Yes, I believe we should protect our interests where we can, but my big concern would, how would this pipeline affect the stormwater runoff? We have a stormwater issue in this township that can't be fixed. If we make it worse, then I would like to hold them responsible to clean it up.
Thank you. Mr. Bernard?
Again, you're here for answers. So, would I oppose the Penn East pipeline, which would cause traffic congestion due to construction and dramatically decrease property values while putting our groundwater and citizens' health and livelihood at risk for the financial benefit of a private company? Yes, I would. So, being said, if those were the conditions, if those were the reasons for the pipeline to come in, would I oppose it if it really would dramatically decrease property values while putting our groundwater, as Mr. Murphy said, at risk? I would definitely oppose it.
Thank you. Okay, starting with you, Mr. Bernard. Regarding the township's Houseneck Park Mansion, what is your future vision of this structure from a programming and use perspective? And secondly, how do you plan on paying for much needed renovations to make the mansion viable for use by the public?
That's a very good question, Howard. When I came on the board some 3 years ago, and I got introduced to this Houseneck kind of venture, it's been one that I'm still getting an understanding of. It's a project that I don't know has ever been really truly defined to me as to its use. So I'm still unclear about really what do we want to do down there. I know we're spending money through grants, making renovations to the park. However, to give you a real answer, I'm still unclear as to if we really have defined its use.
Mr. Murphy.
This project has been it's been a pain in the neck for the township for years. Back when we started, we formed a housing committee, which we got some people involved that I think it caused more problems than it started. I like the fact that the staff, township manager, have been able to get grants, and it appears, I've been told, that the park, the trails, will be open hopefully soon. As far as the mansion goes, 4 years ago, the cost was prohibitive to do anything. If things have changed, I don't know. If we can get the money for grants to open it up, I would be fine with it. But I don't think we should throw township money at a building when it could be used for other projects or whatever else our needs are.
Mr. Nolan.
Again, an excellent question. As Mr. Murphy is hired, I happen to be the chairman of the Houseneck Committee, which was a group of various individuals, both with the township and outside. As a result of our many, many meetings, all right, we wound up working with our advisors to develop a master plan. And there were 3 conditions on that master plan, which the board approved. One, of course, was to continue to make the Houseneck Mansion a public use, to restore it, all right? Another one also was to continue the Houseneck Committee so that we could continue the process of the master plan. That particular item was shot down. Either way, I'm a proponent of it. We have not put any public dollars into the park, nor will I propose to. There are many avenues of additional funding to restore the mansion. All right, I propose in the very near future to get before the board a list of recommended uses that came out of the housing committee so that we have a basis of what we will do with the building. Okay? So you got to remember, initially the prime land next to it was up for redevelopment, a lot of condos, and certain commissioners gave a green light to that. Luckily, new commissioners that came on board saw the light, and we did not rezone the adjoining area to housing, so that those condos basically went away. And that was a great benefit to the entire township and the entire area. So I want to thank you for that.
Mr. Zworsky.
The Housenick Estate is one of the grandest mansions in the Lehigh Valley. Considering the economic times that we're in, it leads us to do certain things. But if things were different, if revenues would increase, if we had a perfect world, there's a lot of great things that could be done with that house. It could be used as maybe a library for our residents. It could be used as a place where senior citizens can meet on a daily basis. The rec center that we have, the places limits on how many times the elderly can meet there. And that's not fair to them. If we had a more perfect world, if we had greater revenues, that home could be a perfect place to have uses like I mentioned. But that's not the case. So we have to take things one step at a time, work on the grounds, and see where we can get grants to work on the house.
Thank you. Moving into public safety. We have read a fair amount of stories in the local press about the recent crackdown by the Township Police Department on drugs and prostitution in the community. What is your position on crime in the township, and what do you plan on doing to help keep the community as safe as possible? Mr. Zworsky.
We have a great police force. They're trained, they're dedicated, and recently they created a drug task force to curb those types of crime, and they've made great headway into stopping it. It's something that they have to keep on doing. When you hear that there are numerous houses that are meth labs, and that you can go to the local drugstore and in a matter of a half hour have all the ingredients you need to make it, is concerning. They have to stop things as such, and I believe they're making great headway to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Nolan.
Yeah, I agree. We have an excellent department, especially our Sergeant Blake, who heads that area. In fact, this year they requested that we actually get him to where he is full-time to work on these type of situations, and we can move around some corporals into this position. And I think that's a step in the right direction, because these are issues that you don't know about until you read in the paper. And it's all over, not only in our township and the other ones, but the drug task force that Rich is part of does an excellent job in getting to the root, and hopefully, saying, not in our township, go elsewhere if you have to, but we are watching, and we're going to do our best to minimize it, not eliminate the drug trafficking.
Thank you. Mr. Murphy.
Well, I don't think any of the four of us are going to disagree on this. I think we're all unanimous in that we support our police department. In the past, we've the commissioners have worked with the police department in support role. We do not get involved with the who got arrested or that. That's not in our authority. But I would continue to support the police and work with them and staff and try to clean up the town as best they can.
Mr. Bernard.
As I mentioned earlier, I think one of the things about what's nice about this community is the strengths that we have in Bethlehem Township, and one of those strengths is our staff. As some of you may be familiar with, we have a very, can we say, tenured staff. Some have been around longer than I've been living. So, and not mention the police chief himself, but I would definitely think that I'm always in support of what the staff is trying to do from protecting our community, for serving our community, anytime there's a need for more officers to get out and combat crime in our community, my ears are always open.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Bernard. The Bethlehem Township Board of Commissioners has voted to move forward with the planning and construction of a new restroom facility in the North 40 portion of the municipal park. The building would be paid for with a pending $250,000 State Greenways Trail and Recreation Program grant, plus $100,000 from the township budget. This is a two-part question. Part one, should the grant money come in, do you agree with spending $100,000 out of the township general fund for the restrooms? Part two, if the grant money does not come in, would you be in favor of spending the full $350,000 from the township general fund to construct the restrooms?
Question one, with the grants coming in, being in favor of the North 40 bathrooms, I'm a big proponent of youth sports in our community. I recognize that when you're building a community, one of the major, kind of aspects of that community is your youth sports, where it draws. I've met numerous families through youth sports. I met, beautiful kids that come out of there with strengths that they normally wouldn't have otherwise. So if a grant is definitely awarded to us, I would definitely be in favor. And if not, and secondly, if the grant is not in favor, let me just put it this way. I think we spend more money on house neck for some walking trails than we would be spending for North 40 bathrooms. So if we can, afford to spend money on the trails, I think then we should have money to spend on the bathrooms.
Thank you. Mr. Murphy.
This question's been around for at least 10 years. And it's gone back and forth, who's responsible, who's going to own what. I am in full support, as I said before, in youth sports. I've coached everything, football. I currently still coach basketball. So it's very important to have facilities at these places. If we got the grant, I would consider, I'd back that up. The question is, what happened to where both the Bulldogs and the Township were going to share in the cost? Apparently now, the Township would be paying that other $100,000. We did have a plan at one time where we'd share. If we don't get the grant, I would look for different alternatives. $350,000 is a lot of money to be spending on a very short period of time. So I would look for alternatives to that.
Mr. Nolan.
Yeah, back in our budget time, this issue came up with the Bulldogs, and we discussed it, and we looked into it, and the administration had people in to look at the cost for basically either a free pad or whatever, and it was in the $200,000 range. And therefore, the majority of the board approved that item capital for this year, $200,000 for this. In the meantime, the engineers got involved, and now you're dealing with ADA and all the requirements, and instead of having a couple restrooms, you have basically a major facility. And that's why the price went up to $350,000. So that's kind of new information to the board from the budget time. Right now, we've only authorized the township manager to prepare the application for the grant. And it'll have to come back to us to actually authorize her to issue the grant. In the meantime, we are trying to get some information as to how the Bulldogs will be in cooperation, funding-wise or otherwise, so that we have a mutually agreeable situation. I think we need it, number one. I've gone to a lot of parks, and there's always adequate restroom facilities, especially for major events. Somehow we have to find a way to make it work budget-wise and accomplish that task in the very near future.
Thank you. Mr. Zworski.
As I have walked through the township and met residents, there's a majority that says this is something that we need. I talked to one gentleman that said there's 20 different municipalities that the Bulldogs play against, and at each facility there are public bathrooms. Why don't we have public bathrooms? It's something that at this stage of the game that we're not providing those services to our residents. It doesn't matter whether we get the grants or not. We need to find a way to fund this. And there have been different programs as to how we'll fund this. And it really doesn't much matter. We'll find a way, and hopefully they will be built.
Thank you. Okay, moving to your typical Monday night board meeting issues. It has been reported that some in the public seemingly spend too much time addressing the Board of Commissioners during courtesy of the floor portions of the public meetings. There has been discussion amongst the current commissioners that a rule should be passed limiting individual public input during courtesy of the floor as well as public hearings to no more than 5 minutes maximum. Do you agree with this? If so, why? If not, why? Mr. Zborski.
I will, as president of the Board of Commissioners, if someone has a valid point and they show passion for what they're doing and they approach the board, I will give them as much time as they need. What's disturbing is people coming up and reading from a list and then the next person saying the same thing and so on and so forth. That gets a little bit frustrating at times. I've passed around the idea that if there's a group of 5, 6, 7 people that all have the same thing to say, maybe they could allocate their time slot to the one person so the one person could talk for 15 minutes if they want to make a presentation that long. I'm not opposed to someone taking having a 10-minute, 15-minute speech for the board, but redundancy is bothersome.
Thank you. Mr. Nolan.
I recall early on in my involvement, courtesy of the floor used to be at the end of the meeting, which meant whatever you got to say doesn't mean anything because our business is over with. We want to hear you. We fostered to get it at the first part of the meeting. I'm one to listen to what they have to say, especially if it's an agenda item. We also foster that if it's an agenda item, wait till that agenda item comes up so that if a developer wants to talk or this or that, you gain more insight, you will have perhaps better questions to ask. All right, so you should not limit the people who come out. All right, these are the people who go to this end. Hopefully we want to listen to them. An informal policy is fine. Let the chair develop. If there's a major issue and you've got the overcrowded room, you know, limit people so that you can get on with the business. But don't have a policy that you restrict people to a time frame because that's very demeaning and disrespectful to them.
Thank you. Mr. Murphy.
We're elected by the people, and we have the right, they have the right to ask us any questions they want, bring up any issues they want. To keep the meeting flowing properly, though, it's the job of the president, who's moderating the board, who's in charge of the board, to keep the questions moving. If there's a problem and there's redundancy, you ask them, please hurry up, or you just say, thank you, we've heard it. It's the president that controls how the tempo of the meeting should be. But every person, every citizen has the right to come up there and talk, and if they wanted to talk forever and they were continuing to make points, I would let them.
Mr. Bernard.
What was the question again? You talked about being courteous.
Courtesy of the floor.
Courtesy of the floor. Obviously, you know, when I think about, you know, people that are courteous and respectful, that means I have an opportunity to listen. When they come to the meetings, that means they want to know that we really care about what they have to say. So in that respect, to give them respect, I want to thank them for, number one, coming out, because as you notice, most people only come out really when there's a real issue coming up, and sometimes those issues are important to them. So when you think about courtesy of the floor, I'm with Mr. Murphy. We have a chair who's in charge of facilitating the meeting, and my job is to sit and listen. So that's what I'm there for.
Thank you.
That's what I'm there for.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to have 2 more questions. We're going to start with you, Mr. Bernard. Regarding the Bethlehem Township Community Center, it has been open now for almost a decade and is now in need of repair. How do you summarize the success of the community center, and what is your position on the needed repairs?
That's a good question, Howard. That's one that probably takes more than 2 minutes to explain.
1 minute.
I thought we'd get 2 on this one. When I think about the community center, and again, that's one of the things that we've been strategically planning and looking at ways of making improvements there and renovations to better meet the needs of our community. However, you know, I'm always in favor of anything that can benefit, you know, the way we live, work, and play in this community. So anytime we look at things that we need to do to better enhance those opportunities, I'm all ears for that.
Thank you. Mr. Murphy.
I remember when the community center was approved, it was the last meeting before Mr. Nolan and I came on the board. And I think at that courtesy we got up there, Mr. Nolan and I know I did, and we asked them to please hold the vote till the next meeting when we have the new representatives on the board. Well, they voted, and we came in there and we had a plan approved. There was a lot of construction issues building that. So the current board really doesn't have any, it's not their responsibility of things that have happened. But over time, over 12 years, things wear out. I can't believe when it was approved, in my wildest expectations, I never would think that it's used as much as it is. I go over there all the time. In fact, I'm going over there tonight after this meeting, and it is packed all the time. It's our responsibility to maintain it, and whatever needs to get done, we've got to do it right this time.
Thank you. Mr. Nolan.
Yeah, I agree. The community center is a gem, as far as I'm concerned. Number one, it serves a definite purpose. It's heavily used, and more important, it's financially stable. There's not a deficit to our budget. It sustains its revenue and its expenditures every year. But yeah, there are problems that we have to address, like any home, age, things, problems, especially with auditoriums, condensation, etc. issues. So we are presently looking at that, and we will have to come up with a plan and the funding necessary to correct problems before it gets past to a point where those problems will only become more expensive. But as for its use, I think it has served the township well, and it will continue to serve the township. So we have to maintain it like any other asset to benefit and to encourage the programs and whatnot. We have an excellent staff that does quite a job on making everything available to the residents, both in sports and in other type of programs that are available to them. So I think they've done an excellent job, and I'm fully supportive of it.
Thank you. Mr. Zaworski.
The community center is one of our greatest assets that Bethlehem Township has. The changes that we are going to be making over the next year will be a benefit to our community. This is one reason people love Bethlehem Township, appreciate it, and they move here because of the recreation center. And it's something that we should always be mindful of as we move in the future as to how we fund it, how we improve it, and how we expand on the uses that are there.
Thank you. And the last question of the evening, we're going to just get into state versus local jurisdiction. It was reported that the Township Board of Commissioners approved an ordinance amendment not allowing firearms in township parks. It was further reported that this was done in response to recent state legislation preempting municipalities from having ordinances prohibiting firearms in public property. With that said, knowing that a number of municipalities such as Harrisburg, Pittsburgh, Lancaster, and Philadelphia have challenged this state statute in court, should they prevail and the requirement is overturned, would you reinstate a firearms ban on township property? Mr. Zaworski.
There is a place for guns, but I don't think the place is in our parks. If that should occur, I think we should ban guns from our park.
Thank you. Mr. Nolan?
I'm the same passion. The law, the ordinance we just changed from having the ability to have a gun in the park to outlawing the use or discharge of that gun. It's academic, but either way, we have no choice. It was a state law that we had to follow, and our solicitor does a job of informing us as such. But if that's overturned, and guns should not be allowed in a public park, where there's children and there's sports activity, there's no need for it, and I would totally support outlawing.
Mr. Murphy?
I agree with both gentlemen. The big thing is, what's the state going to do about it? But again, you know, you have these marijuana legalization out in Denver and out west, where it's legal in the state, but it's against the federal law. I don't know how much the state is going to win on this thing, but I would agree if they overturn it. There's a place for guns at different places, but not in the parks.
Mr. Nolan, or Mr. Bernard, sorry.
Should I answer? You know, being that this is the last question, it's a very good one when you're looking at, you know, especially, you know, coming from the Republican Party, you know, having the use of right to use guns. I think the way to answer this question is probably understanding what our mission, what our vision is, and what our values are in this township. I would think, you know, again, my concern would be public safety, making sure that that the concerns of our, you know, community is met first, and then secondly, I will make sure that it definitely surrounds our values, what we want to, you know, to be able to live, work, and play in. I think that's our mission statement here in this community. So if the state should overturn something like this, I would definitely, you know, fight against it.
Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes our township portion of the evening. We'd like to thank the candidates for participating. And at this time, we're going to transition into the county. We ask you please remain because the county council candidates here tonight also include candidates for Bethlehem County. So we're just going to take a small, just a recess here and change candidates. And again,
Let's
thank
have
you.
a round of applause for our candidates.
Will I ask when?
We're going to get this portion of the forum started, and since this part of the forum relates to county government, we're going to have someone come up and give some remarks about the controller position in the county. Ron Engel, can you talk to us about the controller position?
Good evening, I'm Ron Engel. How many of you didn't know me?
I don't.
Good job. We have no candidate for controller in Northampton County. No one came forward to put their name in, and for those of you who follow county government, Steve Barron is an incomplete, who should be removed from office. He is total, gross, incompetent. So, the party has decided I'm their candidate, I guess. They've endorsed me and they want me to run. But the decision will have to be made by at least 250 people. That's what's required to be write-in votes to get on the ballot. Here's what I will say about that. And my political advisor, Cheryl Corsi, is in the back making big eyes. I never say what she wants me to say. I also never write speeches, by the way. You know, people give you their resume. I'm not going to give you my resume because it's too long. But I don't know of anything I haven't served in. I was a trustee of this community college. On my way down there, I thought, the hell haven't you ever served in? Why are you doing any of this stuff? I believe when I was 17 years old, the right thing was to join the Marine Corps. I had two uncles who were wounded in the Second World War, and I thought, that's the right thing to do. When I lived in Portland, somebody said, well, you have all these opinions about local government, why don't you run for borough council? So I did, and then I ran for township supervisor when I moved there. I've been on the school board 3 or 4 terms, county council 3 terms, you name it, I've served on it. But a couple of years ago, I told people the truth in this county about Grayscale. I took an unpopular stand and told you the truth. I didn't tell you what the hell you wanted to hear because it's not my style to ever tell you what you want to hear. I believe in telling you the truth. If you read the papers recently, Steve Barron, who said the Stoke administration and I were lying and we cooked the books, they weren't losing money. The latest projection in a couple of years is now $12 million instead of $5 million. I told you the truth, and people threw me out of office. What a wonderful way for me to go, because I wouldn't have wanted to go any other way. We now don't have a candidate for controller. And some people in the party have said to me, you would make a good controller. And that probably is very true, by the way, because there's no more fiscal watchdog conservative than I know than me. If any of you think you are, just raise your hand, because I can step aside and also let you in. But somebody needs to be the financial fiscal watchdog of the county. That's what that office of controller needs to be. Not somebody who's down at the Union Hall every afternoon, patting people on the back at the Union Hall, goes to businesses and threatens them that if they don't do what the unions want, they won't do business with the county. I could give you a whole list of things that Steve Barron does, but one thing he doesn't do, he's not the financial fiscal watchdog of the county. I know Northampton County inside and out, and I can tell you what's right and I can tell you what's wrong. As the controller, I can't make anything happen. I can merely point out to the council, the executive, and the taxpayers what is wrong. And there's things that could be corrected, and loads of things that could be corrected, if somebody wants to take that on. So here's where this is all at. The party seems to want me to be their candidate. They've endorsed me. I didn't request it, by the way. I don't know if I've ever been endorsed. I've been thrown out of a lot of places, but never endorsed. And if 250 people are bold enough to write my name in, I can assure you I will run a hell of a campaign in the fall against Steve Barron, because I detest Steve Barron. And if elected, I will give you what I gave you every time in every place I ever served. And that's 110%.
Which is a small private development company, and we specialize in taking unloved, unwanted, and unused properties and turning it into a productive asset. One of my first large-scale projects was the DUI Center that is now currently in West Easton, Pennsylvania. That was approved through the county as well as the local municipality in West Easton. The project took over 3 years, but now that center removes non-violent offenders and puts them into a place where they can have work release, and it saves the county money in terms of population, from the general population at the prison to the county. Those people who work at the work release pay back their debt to society, and it works out very well. Through my efforts, I've also established 3 charter schools in the Lehigh Valley. As of 2015-2016 academic school year, we'll have 1,000 students within a charter school system, and we'll have over 100 teachers employed as a result of that. As the COO of Saucon Valley Manor and Whitehall Manor, we provide quality care for up to 400 residents, and we employ just slightly under 250 employees that care for those people. Every day I wake up in the morning, I know that I'm positively affecting the lives of the people who are weakest among us, our children, our elderly residents, and those people who are transitioning in times of need. While I feel very fortunate for all the gifts I've been given, what provides me the greatest joy is being a dad to my 2 boys, Declan and Keegan, who are both in middle school, very active in everything, including football, Boy Scouts, karate, drama, music, all those above. Although I'm retired from coaching football and baseball because of their ages, I'm still active in the Boy Scouts. I'm an assistant scoutmaster of Troop 418. I also am a dog owner of a rescued Weimaraner named Zoe, and she's not the best behaved dog, but she wants you to know that she is trying. I want to take my 15 years of experience in both the private and public sector to work for Northampton County. I know that what it is like to make a payroll. I know what it's like to stay on budget. I know what it's like to provide services for people. Anytime I'm asked why are you running for council, this answer is quite simple. I just want to help. Thank you.
Mr. Bradley?
Hi, Lauren Bradley. I'm running for County Council in District 4. Let me tell you a little bit about my background, my education, and my qualifications for this position. I have a bachelor's degree in political science and U.S. history. I graduated with academic honors and was inducted into two different honor societies, which is ironic. I came from a family that did not support or talk about or advocate for further education. I got married to my wife, and 6 weeks later, I lost my job and decided, oh my gosh, maybe there's something more to this. I need to learn how to do something. That started a journey that has just been an amazing awakening. I went on from my bachelor's experience to get a master's degree in labor and industrial relations and a second master's degree in administration. That led me into my current career, where I work in human resources and labor relations. I have over 25 years of experience as a professional and in increasing responsibilities. I have international business experience as well as a guest lecturer, both internationally as well as in various labor institutions around the country. What I do as a professional is work with conflict and try to resolve conflict. I work to try and identify the needs of individuals, both in unions and in non-union locations, and trying to work to develop solutions that are workable for all parties in budget and being able to reduce budget expenses. I'm also an individual that's an advocate for serving our community and the organizations that are around them. Through my experiences and opportunities as a professional, I give back to the community significantly. I'm involved in Boy Scouts. I'm an Eagle Scout myself and have had a variety of different experiences with the Boy Scout organization for over 25 years. Our family enjoys a lot of outdoor activities and sports and have volunteered at some level, including the high school level, to be a coach for football, basketball, baseball, wrestling, you name it. And I'm also involved in our church, and I think that that's one of the things that is a core value to me, regardless of the position that I'm in or the environment I'm in. I have a core compass that I will not deviate from. We help a lot of underprivileged or struggling families in our community through that organization. Speaking of core values and family, I do want to acknowledge my families here, part of them, Ben, my future daughter-in-law, and my wife, Jenny. And I'll tell you that my wife, Jenny, has helped me to become the individual that I am. She's very focused on serving and helping others, and that is something that has rubbed off on me and that I greatly appreciate. Why am I running? I'm at a point in my career where I'm ready to give back and want to do better the community in which I live and help others to enjoy the same benefits that we have here in Bethlehem County. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank the Northampton County Republican Committee and the Community College for hosting this event. I think it's important that you all come out and get to meet us and hear what the issues are. My name is John Cusick, and my background is I'm a graduate of Lehigh University. Upon graduating, I undertook a career in retail management where I sold building supplies, paint, and hardware. That didn't go too well, so I decided to go back to graduate school, and I became a teacher. I got a master's degree in education from East Stroudsburg, and I've been a high school teacher now for 19 years. In that time, I've done some things politically. I had the wonderful opportunity to serve a term as a township supervisor. I was thrilled to hear earlier this evening that the garbage is being picked up and there are bathrooms here in Bethlehem Township. After being a township supervisor, I was blessed to serve 2 terms on county council. 3 of those years I served as council president. We did have some accomplishments and we did have some setbacks. Some of the accomplishments, we were able to create a state-of-the-art archives facility so you can go and research your family history in a place that's clean, organized, and easily accessible. As Mr. Angle mentioned, we did struggle with the finances of the nursing home, and that's an issue I hope we will get a chance to discuss this evening. As Mr. Thompson said, we were able to construct and involve ourselves in a treatment facility which created extra space at the prison, which was sorely needed. But when we think about county government, I always think of some things that are invisible to a lot of people. When I go to people and I tell them, well, what do you think county government does? What can it do for you? A lot of them don't really know. And part of that is because the reason is that, well, some of the services that county government provides are completely invisible. Or they're places where you don't want to wind up. Nobody wants to wind up in prison. Nobody wants to wind up in a nursing home. Unless you're an attorney, you don't really want to wind up in court. But these are all services that we provide at the county level. And it's something that I enjoyed doing for 8 years, serving the public, and it's something that I'd like to do again. And one of the things we also heard earlier this evening is the importance of experience. And I think that it's important that we send somebody back there that's experienced. We have 7 first-term members, and I think that I could bring some experience back to that board that would work well with the county executive. I had the opportunity to serve in the minority. I had the opportunity to serve in the majority. I'd like to go back and serve in the majority with the Republican county executive. That's something I had not had the opportunity to do, and I look forward to doing that. Thank you.
I'd like to thank the Northampton Public Committee for putting it together, and of course for having it here at Northampton Community College. This is actually the college where I began taking my general courses for my aviation and business management before completing the professional pilot program over at Lehigh Community College. I've been blessed in my life. I've been blessed to marry my best friend and have 3 kids, 2 of which you've seen walking around through here. Our third actually has confirmation for church this evening, so he couldn't make it. I've also been blessed to have the opportunity to have a career in aviation and flying. It was an opportunity that I achieved through hard work. You know, since graduating high school, I worked at the airport. I started off going to college classes during the day, taking flight lessons in the afternoon, and actually working third shift as a baggage handler, cleaning airplanes. And once I got my initial ratings and completed the college program, I started working for line service during the day. And then in evenings and nighttime, I would do emergency medical flights as a co-pilot, building up my flight time and resume that way. Also during that time, I also started my own charter brokerage business, which ended up growing into a catering business, which we supported a lot of the operators on the field in Allentown, which also then grew into a coffee shop and deli on Main Street in Bethlehem. It took a lot of hard work, and 2 of the employees that worked there were both my mother and a very good friend of mine, my oldest son's babysitter at the time. And so there was a heavy responsibility and burden to make sure that it made money so we can make payroll. So I understand the troubles and the what small businesses go through. And during that time, I've also been blessed to turn that property, that business over to my mother. It was something actually she had always wanted. And through the support of my wife, I took the leap and actually took a career in flying, which is where I've been for the last 8 years. I was hired there as a co-pilot, working my way up from co-pilot to a captain to a training captain, and actually as of this June, I'll be the chief pilot for our operation. And that came about through hard work and discipline and working with our co-workers, all the different departments in the company, through accounting, through the pilots, through dispatch, and also working through government agencies. I mean, obviously we deal with the FAA, we deal with TSA, unfortunately, and a lot of other agencies. But so I know what it's like to work with these agencies. I know what it's like to work with different companies and work together to a common goal, which was obviously a safe, economical flight department that's competitive and with an unparalleled safety record, and I'm proud of that. I say I'm blessed for these opportunities because when I was younger, I wasn't on the same track as that. When I was 4 years old, living in New Jersey, my parents divorced, and I bounced around to different homes in New Jersey. Never really felt at home until 10 years after that. When I was 14, I settled in New Gap, Pennsylvania, which became, everyone took me in, and right away I felt at home. I made some friends there that have been my friends till this day. I talk to on a regular basis. And I want to make sure that, I want to fight to make sure that that's the same opportunity we provide for future generations and draw people into the area. As someone who's committed to pro-life, I've recognized that not only to protect the quality of life of the child, but also their spirit. And that is why I've coached both all my kids' sporting events, from football, wrestling, baseball, but also my wife and I are Sunday school teachers at our church and youth group leaders. And so I think it's important to get back, and that's why.
Okay, the first question is for all candidates, and we'll start with Mr. Dietz and go in this order. The good news about Graysdale is that the census is at
as high as it's ever been, and the facility has had an unheard 0 health violations in the latest inspection by the state. But the bad news is that it needs between 15 and 18 million in capital improvements. To make matters worse, costs continue to rise, and it is expected that the county contribution will be over $12 million in 2018. In light of these realities, is it time to sell Graysdale? And if your answer is no, please provide a solution that does not include overwhelming the tax burden on the people.
Yeah, obviously, yeah, it is go around door to door. It's an emotional question that everyone goes through. We do have to recognize there's a red line in there. You know, it was $5 million last year, $7 million in the budget this year, and it does. It goes up basically $1.5 million every year. At some point, there's a red line in there. Premier has done a great job of bringing in the costs, and there's a lot of things we could do, and I think we need to do right away. Because obviously, the first thing to look at is doing nothing is unsustainable. That the county cannot afford to keep writing a check that's going to keep growing every year. But we want to provide the care for the seniors in the community. So I think the first thing to do is continue what they've done, which is privatize as much as what we can out of it, lower the cost. Because whether we decide to sell it, or whether it's overwhelmingly supported by the public and they say no, we need to find a way to cut the cost down. So if we privatize as much as we can, get the cost down, we can, A, get a better bargaining power to sell the property. So whether we either, A, maintain the building and lease out the nursing home rights to it, or sell the whole thing outright, or we work together with Lehigh County to come together and find a co-op. But we really need to get the cost down. I am not opposed to selling it, and I think we got to adjust the cost to it. But a lot of those things, like I said, we got to adjust those costs now, even while we decide to sell it, to get a better bargaining price on the sale of it for the people here.
Thank you. John?
Well, 4 years ago, the voters chose to keep Graysdale. Now, I voted in that election. I'm not sure what my opponent did, but I do have a clear plan, and my plan eliminates the county contribution, and it keeps Graysdale under county ownership. And here's what it is. It's called the 501c3 conversion. What it does is it keeps Graysdale county owned, but it changes the management structure to a not-for-profit. What the not-for-profit does, or what that enables us to do, is to collect a higher reimbursement rate from the state. Okay? One of the reasons we're in the problem that we're in is because a law was passed 6-7 years ago that restricted the reimbursement rates for county-owned nursing homes. And we're stuck. And we've tried to change that law to no avail. Okay? So we've heard today, just in the paper, I saw a council member said, well, we're gonna lobby our state reps, state senators. We tried that. Okay, and what we've seen is county after county after county has gotten out of the nursing home business. Okay, but there is an alternative. Okay, the alternative is a not-for-profit conversion, and what that does is it raises our reimbursement rates and it eliminates the county contribution to Graysdale. Okay, thank you.
Is that the same idea that hospitals operate under?
The model that you should look for is Center Crest in Center County, State College. They did this exact same conversion. They went from a large contribution rate to 0 within a year.
Thank you. Mr. Bradley?
I agree that one of the alternatives to look at is the reimbursement rates. I would say first that we complete a top-down analysis, do a business review, take a look at and do it. What does our vendor scorecard look like, or our management scorecard, and make sure that we're holding them accountable for developing more efficient processes. I think that we also need to talk with our unions and other interested parties and develop a business case, that there's some efficiencies that we need to accomplish and make sure that we become a break-even status. I would look at doing those things first and making sure that we try to prioritize to make it workable without increasing any extra burden or additional burden on the taxpayers. I would go down that route first before the alternative, which would be selling.
Mr. Thompson.
I made it a statement when I came out that I don't think Graysdale should be sold. I'm a big fan of the Three Stooges, and I remember one of the shorts where Mo, Larry, and Curly are in a boat, and Curly accidentally shoots a hole in the boat, and they all begin to bail it out. And Curly then shoots another hole in the boat and says, well, I'm just trying to get another hole so the water has a place to run out. There's been no vision in terms of Graysdale other than letting it founder and die. The voters came out 3 or 4 years ago and said, we want Graysdale, and then all hands were on deck to try to sustain it. Why don't we try to make it a for-profit center? Why don't we try to get Medicare to reimburse the people inside the Graysdale home, instead of sending these individuals out by ambulance, which is expensive, to a hospital which needs services like dialysis, and have the hospital make all the money for Medicare. Why don't we keep those services inside Graysdale so that we become a profit center as opposed to letting these things trickle out the door? I was actually pretty happy to see in the paper where the county decided that they're going to try to start doing fundraisers and trying to bring money and revenue into Graysdale, as opposed to, again, doing nothing. How much money is made by Lehigh Valley and St. Luke's and all the medical care providers within Northampton County from those residents leaving Graysdale and going out to their facilities? So I think we need to look at those things in a hard way. I think we need to try to work and make Graysdale a for-profit place as opposed to letting it just be a place where people are warehoused and let everybody else worry about their residue.
Thank you. Next question for Mr. Cusick. Northampton County's Home Rule Charter has been in effect since 1978. Since that time, there have been several lawsuits over the executive's authority to enter into contracts and whether the voting registrar reports to the executive or the elections commission. There is both a director of corrections and a warden. There is a court administrator and a director of court services. Do you think it's time for a major overhaul of the Home Rule Charter and Administrative Code, and how would you go about it?
That's a good question. One of the things that I did when I was a member of County Council was to sponsor a potential ballot question that would have done a Home Rule Charter study. And if I'm elected, I would support that again, because I think there are issues that we have that do need to be addressed. There are overlapping positions. There is, you're right, directors of court services and there's court administrators. There are some questions whether the Department of Court Services should be put under the courts. So I think that those are some of the issues that could be addressed. And I think the whole question of whether or not the Executive Council system is working. It's been an experiment that some counties have looked at and said no. We've had one county that decided that the executive should not be elected, that it should be like a township manager, it should be a county administrator. So yes, I would support a Home Rule Charter study if I were elected, and I think we should look at all of those issues, and I would put that forward if I'm elected to the position again. Thank you.
Mr. Dees?
I would agree with looking into it for a Home Rule Charter. I think obviously we're trying to keep these costs down, look at any of the programs that we talk about that Northampton County provides. And being efficient and being as streamlined as possible, making sure that the groups, the executive and the council members are working together for the same goal. And which means, I really think you have the 9 people that are elected to represent the people in Northampton County, give them some of the power to go ahead and work out these contracts, and you know, the executive can appoint who they want and leave it up to the council to streamline and make sure the positions that need to be filled are ones that they, you know, let the county executive pick who they want to put in there through a vote, but let the council decide what positions need to be there to begin with. Because obviously we're the ones fighting with the people out there to make sure we make the county more efficient, make your county tax dollars go further along. So yes, I would support it.
Mr. Bradley?
I would support it as well, but I think that I would sit down first and develop a vision of what this would look like, a broader business picture. I think that's one thing, especially being involved in the school district, where, you know, in essence, it's a government-regulated entity. We need to take a corporate look at some of these reviews and make sure that they're operating as efficiently as they possibly can. For twofold. One, obviously, the efficiencies that we've all already talked about. But this helps us with our strategy on every organization or entity within the county government that we would take. And if we set this example and set the path forward, then when you go to those next levels, or you're getting ready to develop a strategy when you negotiate a contract with the union, you can communicate and show them by example that this is the direction that we're taking the county in.
Mr. Thompson.
Well, I'd agree with my fellow candidates here that definitely you need to look at what are the overlapping positions of authority within the county structure. I also think you need to look at the county executive and limit the financial authority that the executive has, because ultimately, the council is what is responsible for the budget and implementing the budget. And you can't have a county executive of any party sort of playing by their own rules. And they have to be responsible and responsive to the county as well. Fortunately, I haven't spent much time in the courthouse over my years there, but obviously there are certain positions where you kind of scratch your head and say, well, what's this person here for? What's that person there for? I think all the county employees, for the most part, are generally hardworking people, and they take on more authority, more responsibility because of the conditions that they're working in. But absolutely, you look at the home rule charter, you look to amend it, you look to limit the powers of the executive, you look to give the authority to the people who are actually with the financial ties, which is the council, and you go from there.
This question is for all candidates. We're going to start with Mr. Bradley, since you brought up the executive. Mr. Bradley, do you think it is a wise use of public funds for the county executive to hire a public relations firm? And can you elaborate your opinion on that?
The answer is yes, absolutely. Anytime, I think, when you go to make wholesale change, it's important to make sure that you have a communication strategy. And our voters, our employees, all of our constituency needs to understand what we're trying to accomplish. And when we do that and help them to understand why we're making those changes, it helps to also build in then the future acceptance of those changes.
Mr. Thompson.
I don't believe so. I don't think the county executive, if they're unable to convey their message to the people who are trying to support them, then I think you need more effective leadership. Quite frankly, a good, effective communicator gets their ideas across to the party which they are from and represent, and you try to work with the council, which are supposed to be on your side too, at least in terms of the party. You let them disseminate your ideas, you let the people that support you disseminate your ideas, but I don't think it's wise at all to spend the public relations money because, quite frankly, it's just not worth it. I don't believe you shut out the press from having press conferences. I believe in open and fair and honest government, and how do you have that effectively if you shut the doors to the people that are trying to listen to you?
Mr. Hughes.
I think it's a waste of money. I think it's part of the job description of the Director of Administration. There's no place for it, and if I am elected, I will do everything I can to put a stop to that practice. I think that the county executive and members of council should be their own spokespersons. I was mine for 8 years, and I think the executive and all members of council should speak for themselves, not through a mouthpiece. Thank you.
Definitely not. And first off, it's really a waste of money because it's not doing very well to begin with, the group that's there now. But obviously, no. If you get out in front of people and speak to them, which is, my campaign is going to be heavily set on knocking on doors. And even after I'm fortunate enough to get elected, it's going to be getting out in front of the people. We do have the tough choices going to be coming up with Graysdale and dealing with the 11 unions that are there. And we're going to need the public's opinion on our side. And we don't need a PR person to sell them the public goods. What we need to do is get out in the public, who we represent, the 9 people that are elected to council and the executive, to get out and talk to the people, listen to what their concerns are, and tell them what our direction is that we want to go. Be out in front of them, and we're supposed to be the people's spokesperson. We're not supposed to hire someone else to speak to us for them.
Thank you.
Ms. Snover, can I do a follow-up? Are follow-ups allowed?
Make it short.
I think that's one thing that's different here, that when you take a look at a corporate approach, if you take a look at any successful enterprise, when they're about to make change will fail unless you have an effective communications plan. And having an effective communications plan to implement your change is the first process in having that change process go forward and be successful.
Matt, would you like to talk about that?
Sure. And we've made changes. The company I work for, we're a higher end charter company. We took a hit back when the economy took a dive. Well, we got in front of our employees and vendors and all stuff, and we didn't sell them anything. We got in front of them and talked to them front to front and told them what we're going to do, the direction we're going to go in, and they were on board. And while a lot of companies got shut down or fell out of business or got caught up, we actually were able to grow and expand during that time. And it's from getting out and talking to people directly.
All right, next question for all candidates. I'm going to start with Mr. Thompson. Hayden Phillips, in his first year on council, has reasoned that at a time when the county is bleeding money, the last thing we should do is be spending open space money to bail out golf course developers or buy swampland and cliffs. Is it time to suspend open space projects until the county reserves are built back up?
Absolutely. Open space, I grew up on a farm, in a farm community, and I value that more than anything. I still go, my parents own a farm down in Maryland, which I go to and get to see that land, and it's refreshing to me when I go. But I don't think it's the taxpayers' responsibility to bail out people from making bad decisions. We have an economy that when you start doing that as a matter of course, it gets out of hand, and the burden is borne upon those people who are the middle and lower classes who are trying to get by on a daily basis. And it certainly irks me and irks them as well when they see people who have the golf courses out there walking away from bad deals. It's a bad deal for them. So I don't believe in open space programs as a whole. When we start making money in the county and there's reserves there and there's a need to go and preserve certain lands, by all means, but if someone wants to preserve land bad enough, they can go buy it themselves.
Mr. Bradley.
I'm a supporter of open space and farmland preservation.
I support open space and farmland preservation, but I think what's critical is that we make wise choices. Okay, there are bad deals out there that are put before us, and it is up to council to say no sometimes. One of the things you have to keep in mind is that open space money from the county can be leveraged with state and local dollars. So by not putting up especially farmland preservation, we lose the opportunity to draw down money from the state. And if we don't take it, trust me, somebody else somewhere else will. So I do support those programs, but I think it's important that we make wise choices and work with our local municipalities to direct the funds appropriately. Thank you.
So for the open space, it is a great thing. I serve on the park board, and we see the benefits, to having it there. But again, not when the county is hurting for money. And not only does that hurt the county, but also hurts the communities. Because obviously, in order to get these grants that are from the county and state, they need to spend a lot of money to go out and have master plans done. And for every program that gets accepted for it, there's 10 different communities that draw master plans that don't get accepted, and that's burdensome on their local community. And as for the preservation, I moved to this area because it is a beautiful area, and we want to keep it that way. But right now, so far, since it started in '89, we spent over $60 million of local taxpayers, state and local funds that come out of the area to buy over 13,000 acres. If we're going to continue, we need to have a plan. At what point does the county, have the rights to or change the rights to enough of the land? At some point it's going to stop. And so I like to see it tied off to development. From the farmland preservation standpoint, if development was to stop in a perfect world, we wouldn't need to buy up any more property for farmland reserve. So we tie it to a growth in development, so it only matches, we only invest in the farmland preservation if there's a rampant growth. So when this happened, it was back in the 90s when things were flourishing. There was a lot of money in the area, people were developing the area. So then there was definitely a need in there to preserve this farmland from being developed. As things slow down, we need to slow down as well.
Okay, Mr. Bradley, this question starts with you. Do you agree with the recent 2015 1 mil tax increase passed by the Republicans? If so, why or why not?
I agree. I think that we have, we're in a difficult economy. We've heard that from several of the candidates that previously went up. Right now, and those that have had previous government experience, I'm on the school board right now in Nazareth area school district, The thing that's facing us right now in all governmental municipalities is the pension requirements that the state is placing on us. They are requiring all of us to continue to increase the funding for public employees significantly year after year. We have to, it's a requirement, we have to meet that obligation. I think while we do that we have to take a look at where our other spending activities are and see if we can absolutely reduce them wherever we possibly can. We've done that at Nazareth, but what we have to do is make sure that we're doing this in a way to where we are sensitive to our taxpayers, that we're making sure that we reduce spending and cut out programs that are unnecessary while we make sure that we meet that funding obligation.
Mr. Thompson.
I don't. The first reason is that the projections which were made based upon the rationale of raising taxes turned out to be false. So that was either poor vision or poor information, but I don't believe that that was wise to do something when you didn't know what the ramifications are. I believe in pragmatism, and you don't rationally rush out to do something, especially when it affects the taxpayers. I just spent the last 4 weeks of my life going through audits and tax returns for the companies which I represent, and you know, that's no joke. That's why I look so tired now. But $1 million here with tax increases for school boards and local municipal taxes going up, and all the fees going up for the services which you're paying your tax money for, at what point do you just say, enough's enough, stop? I don't understand where the money's coming from, because certainly I'm not sure how many people here are getting raises every year to take away the tax increases that you're getting. So I don't agree with it. It was based upon faulty information. It was based upon a false premise, and you know, I think everyone's going to realize that going forward, that unless you have the right information, you shouldn't even begin to think about raising taxes on the taxpayers.
Mr. Cusick?
Well, I think the reserves were drained. Pension obligations have continued to increase. The cost of keeping Graysdale under county ownership, as determined by the voters, has been a burden. The swaption, which was entered into by Mr. Reedman and a previous council, that Mr. Angle and I sat month after month urging Mr. Stofa to put an end to, that drained the reserves. So there was little or no choice that this current board was left with. Operating with little or no reserves is extremely dangerous, particularly given the situation with the state budget. If you're put in a position where you're not getting state funding at the county level, you have to dip into your reserves. So it is absolutely necessary that you have 2 months worth of reserves in order certainly to keep your bond rating high, but also to make sure you can pay your employees if the state money doesn't come. And that may happen this year. So I think revenues did need to increase.
Mr. Needs?
I do support that choice that they increase the tax. Now, make no mistake, that was from years of reckless spending. You know, 4 years ago, they had $60 million in emergency reserve funds, and they were projected to have budget only around $2 million at the end of that year. And that is, you know, it's not a way to run a business, not a way to run our homes forward. You know, when you run that low in there, it turns any event that you may have into a crisis. And that leads to bad choices, you know, because you look for, when you're that tight on your budget with no reserves in there, you look at things like swaption and all those other things, because you look for a short-term gain which have a long-term cost to it. If you're financially sound, you can make long-term choices, make the right investments, so that the long-term stability of the financials of the county are in line. So, but it's also why it's important to let someone who's going to be fiscally conservative, so we can fight to make sure that that tax increase goes into that reserve fund and doesn't come out for the general spending like it has been, so we can get rid of that tax and then fight to make the county more efficient to lower the overall tax.
John, Mr. Cusick, this question goes to you first. Would you support legislation to revert the role of the controller to its original status as a part-time position as described when the Home Rule Charter was adopted?
Well, I supported making it a full-time position And I do believe it should be a full-time position. But I think if we want to attract candidates that are interested and are qualified, we need to pay someone who meets the qualifications. And specifically, I think someone should have some training in accounting. The current controller has none. So I think that I do not want it to go back to part-time. We saw with a part-time controller, we had some fraud and theft right across from the DA's office. And I think having a full-time controller is beneficial. Somebody should be in there and should be accessible all the time, okay? But let's make that person a professional, and let's pay them as a professional.
Mr. Bradley?
I would support it going back to a full-time, or excuse me, to a part-time position. But before doing so, I think it would be part of that review. You have to take a look at all of the vision of how we want the county government to look like. And anytime as we go through this, we talked about some of those tough choices related to the cost of running the county business. I think if there's an opportunity to do it prudently, that we should try to capture all the efficiencies that we possibly can.
Mr. Dees?
I would look at it, to be honest with you, but I would definitely be open to making it a part-time position. As part of making the county more efficient, you know, we do have other people that work in that department that actually do the day-to-day operations that person is representing. And we also have, you know, the person for Department of Fiscal Affairs that oversees it. If we fight to make the county more efficient and streamlined, I don't see why it couldn't be a part-time position unless there's some roles or duties that I'm missing along the day.
Mr. Thompson?
Well, I don't want to disappoint Mr. Angle, but I think it should be a part-time position. I think right now it's treated as a part-time position, even though it's a full-time position.
I'm not disappointed.
Okay. Honestly, if you have a person and you elect a person who has experience and the ability to act as a controller, it shouldn't need to be a full-time position. When you put somebody who's learning on the job or not learning on the job and just keeping the chair warm, it doesn't make much sense. If you want an efficient government, you can have people in there who are qualified, and those qualified people do that job efficiently. It's basic finance 101. So.
Okay, this next question will start with Matt. Matt, would you have voted for the recent ordinance change that lowered the dollar amount of county council oversight of certain purchases from $100,000 to $10,000?
I would have supported it. And I think, you know, if their issue is that puts a burden on the county, then I think we need to look at how we structure the finances of the county to make it more efficient. If they would have came back and said, you know, maybe 10,000 is too low, let's meet somewhere in the middle, I would have been open to looking at that too. But I think making the office, the administration more accountable, more fiscally responsible with the funds, and fight to overhaul a system that makes it so that they can get by with less without making, you know, getting around to the next vote or accounting on it.
John?
Well, I would say no. I think the council's job is not to micromanage. What we do is we go through a budget process every fall. We set the numbers there, and it's up to us to set those parameters for the executive to live within those budget lines. $10,000 is, in my opinion, just restricts the flexibility that he would have, particularly with human services contracts and some of the larger purchases. I don't think it's county council's job to be regularly approving things like toilet paper. That's not our role. Okay? Our role is to set a budget and have the county executive and the administration live within the parameters of that budget. I think $100,000 is adequate.
Mr. Bradley?
Yes, I would have voted for it. In corporate America, we refer to this as the grant of authority. I think that it is always prudent to make sure there's some types, and I'm not talking about micromanaging, but I think that they're having some type of a system to where there's a check and balance to ensure that appropriate expenditures are being paid for appropriate purchases.
Mr. Thompson?
I'm of the belief that government should be pragmatic and not rush to make bad decisions. I believe having a limit of $10,000 on the county executive would prevent the county executive from making those decisions. And ultimately, the council is responsible to the people. It should be responsive to them. So if you have to approve a case of toilet paper, well, by all means, you should be responsible enough to do that. If government should be rational, it should be responsible. And if it's not that, then what is it? So giving a blank check to an executive, and we're lucky to have a Republican as a county executive, but what happens when you have someone who maybe more spendthrifty? You don't want to go back in time and say, boy, we should have done it when we had a chance. I think you limit the power of the executive, and $10,000 I think would be very sufficient in order to make sure that the county council is being the watchdog that it needs to be.
Okay. We have one more question, and then we will have closing statements. The last question, I'll start with Mr. Thompson. Do you agree with the proposal that all county workers must live in Northampton County when hired, or agree to move to the county with 1 year of their hire date?
I don't believe so. I think you want the best people for the job at the price you're willing to pay for them. Certainly you would want the person to be from the county because you want them to have a chip in the game. But I don't want to restrict free trade. I don't want to restrict a person from having to move to one county or the next, or one community to the next, in terms of doing their job. We talk about corporate businesses all the time. Well, my father, who worked at General Motors, lived in Maryland and commuted 45 minutes a day to Delaware to provide a living for his family. Why would we want to restrict that person from doing that same thing? There are a lot of good people who live in Pennsylvania and New Jersey who want to do well by the public. They want to be responsible to the government. And quite frankly, maybe we don't have enough qualified people in any one position that you have to look for outside counties. So no, I don't agree with that at all. I don't think you're restraining trade whatsoever.
Mr. Bradley?
I agree. The answer is no. It's a talent war out there. We want the best people to fill those positions. If we implemented some of these measures, we've got plenty of vacancies now that would continue to impact that, in my opinion. So if we're going to raise the bar, you bring in the best talent, and then you start to just raise those expectations, and therefore you're going to be able to provide better services for our citizens.
Mr. Cusick?
Yeah, I don't think it's right to restrict where people live and where they work. I think New Jersey has done that, and I was fortunate to be grandfathered in. And right now, they're having a hard time finding qualified people to hire for some positions. So I think restricting people's residency is the wrong thing to do. But I do think, the county executive, when he chooses his cabinet, should have some discretion and should try to hire the most qualified people. Hopefully that person does live in Northampton County. That would be great. They'd have a stake in the community. But if there's somebody more qualified that doesn't live here, I want the best person for the job.
And I agree. It should not be restricted to living within the county. We want the best people to represent us in whatever field it may be. And if at a particular time, no one's qualified or wants a position when it opens up that resides in the county, we should do best by the people in the community and hire the best that we can. And then what we can do is fight to make the county more attractive to them. Keep the taxes down, make it a better rural community, that they make the choice that they want to come here on their own.
Now for the closing statements, we will go in the opposite order as we did the opening statements. So, Mr. Bradley, you will be first.
Well, thank you very much for inviting us here tonight. It's been a fun experience. I am grateful and appreciate the opportunity that I've had to share my background. I think that this election, they're twofold. One, let's win that seat back to the Republican side of the House. And let's make sure we're continuing to support and get a candidate in there that's qualified to help them with complex issues and resolve those issues and be able to facilitate that relationship. It's one thing to just say we're going to do this with the unions or do this with any group of employees, but you have to be able to have the expertise and the experience to be able to facilitate those relationships, because you know what, after you get an agreement, you're going to have to continue to work with these people to make sure that they're successful in doing their job and that they're motivated to do their job. And I believe that I have the skills and experience to do that. Thanks.
Mr. Dees?
Sure. Obviously, thanks for everyone putting this together. Thanks for everyone coming out and sticking around and listening to what we have to say. As I said, I've been blessed, and that really stems from the support of my wife and family. And I think the best way to foster the opportunity and for the community is to make it a place that families are strong. And so some of the leading reasons for divorce are financial struggles. The leading cause of foreclosure for seniors are property tax increases. So we can help the community out by making families stronger, by keeping our costs down as much as we can while still providing services. We want to make the community strong, keep families together, and I think that'll make it more attractive for others to want to move in the area, contribute to the area, and that's through my resume there of what I said. I've had the history and experience and ready to serve the county council and the people.
Thank you very much. On May 19th, you're all going to have the opportunity to go to the polls and choose your Republican candidate for Northampton County Council. I hope that you choose me to be that person. If you look at my experience, my background, what I can bring, I think that I've earned another term. I think that I can work with the existing members of council, and I would appreciate your vote, and I thank you for your time.
Mr. Thompson.
I think you can gain experience outside a 9-person board and gain practical experience about how businesses are supposed to run, how things are supposed to be done in a pragmatic and reasonable and rational way. And I too think I can work with the people of council for the benefit of the district I represent. This has been fun, by the way, and I appreciate it, but when we talk about these principles, we talk about these issues, I think you see that there's maybe not that much difference here, but I think when you look at what someone brings to the table, you want someone who has a mind that has worked with both private and public sector in ways that have benefited many people. I employ a lot of people, and I've had a lot of people receive jobs based upon the work I've done. I've worked in many of the boroughs and municipalities throughout Northampton and Lehigh County. I've got jobs approved. I've got people being treated where the treatment didn't exist before. I'm educating kids in a way that are benefiting them as opposed to dropping out of school and not finding their places in life. I help senior citizens, and I understand what their concerns are because I talk to them every single day. So I think when the voters go on May 19th, I think they need to look at all those things which I can do because I think it benefits them ultimately. Thank you.
Why don't we give our candidates a round?